just as a refresher, here's Rachel Maddow back in May of 2023 with Megyn Carroll. Again, and by the way, Maddow was billing her interview with Megyn Carroll, which happens tonight, as an exclusive and as Megyn Carroll's very first sit down post her verdict award. Megyn Carroll was all over the news. Sorry, Rachel, it didn't work out. I love it. I'm sorry, but I love it. This woman, Rachel Maddow, is getting paid $30 million a year for one show a week. And this is the kind of journalism we get during that 1 hour of work she does. Watch this from May.
Megyn Carroll and her lawyer, Robbie Kaplan, have proven in a court of law that Trump cannot tell lies with impunity. They have done that for the country.
Giddy.
I just want to stand up and give you a standing ovation.
Did things go the way that you thought they would?
I really wasn't doing it for myself. I was doing it for the women in the country.
But Robbie, you have sued this former president a lot, and I wonder how that's changed your life.
Oh, he doesn't like me very much, that's for sure.
I'm sorry to put it in these terms because I feel like I'm a little like casting a movie about it or something. But you saying that it's a disadvantage that he lies so much, I feel like it's the first time I've heard that in 7 years. The ability to lie without shame and without any sort of tell, without any sort of remorse about it whatsoever, and about even the most important things has always seemed like a political superpower to him. You've turned it into the opposite.
No self-awareness, the ability to lie with impunity without any tell. It's a superpower. Yes, and you have it, madam. You exercised it for 4 years while he was in the White House.
Hey, Rachel Maddow was, I think, probably I guess if you want to call her a TV journalist, you can, but let's do that to be generous, like the TV journalist who probably has the largest record of making claims that ended up being completely debunked as utter falsities, as complete lies. Her obsession with every prong of Russiagate and the Steele dossier, her claiming that the New York Post reporting on the Biden family in Ukraine and China was the byproduct of Russian disinformation. Everything that she's been doing and saying for the last 7 years, everything about how it was proven that COVID came from natural origins and that only lying conspiracy theorists believe that it came from a lab in Wuhan. There is almost nobody that you can find who has peddled disinformation more flagrantly and aggressively than she. And as you say, there's zero self-reflection. I don't know if you tried to reach out to Megyn Carroll to ask for an interview, but I seriously doubt that she would be willing to grant interviews to outlets that she knew would be adversarial. And there you see her saying, I want to give you a standing ovation. Clearly, there's a huge amount of political sympathy between Rachel Maddow and Megyn Carroll, just like there is between all of these anchors to whom she's giving interviews. And that political ideology is the one that we easily recognize as being monomaniacally devoted to destroying Donald Trump. This is a political person engaged in a political project, and the media barely tries anymore at this pretense that their job is to ask hard questions. I don't even think if you ask them, they would say they see their job as that. I think they see their job and would admit it as being this kind of overarching duty to do everything possible to stop Donald Trump from returning to power. And if the media's primary allegiance, primary mission is one that is nakedly political like that, and that's what explains all these interviews, there's no wonder that the country hates the media, no longer trusts it, at least that part of the media. I think it's giving rise to independent media that obviously benefits both you and me, and I think benefits the country. But these people in the media are held in complete contempt, and all the things you're showing explain the reason for that.
It's amazing. You know, when I was on NBC, I interviewed 3 Trump accusers. I really feel like I'm the only one who's done both accusers and the accused. I'm very open-minded on these claims. I'm not somebody who's a knee-jerk. No, it didn't happen. You know, I'm certainly not a believe all women, but I'm not a believe no women person either. And you know what I did? I had one of the women who testified at Trump's first trial, because not only did they have Megyn Carroll testify, they brought in 2 others who claimed that they had been sexually assaulted by Trump to tell the jury, me too, because New York State is allowing that too. That's what happened to Harvey Weinstein. And I had one of them on my show at NBC, the woman who claims he groped her on an airplane. And, you know, I asked her, they say that you were in the first class and that middle section doesn't come up. And how could he have gotten across to you? Whatever. You don't have to make it uncomfortable and painful when you've got somebody who's claiming they were sexually assaulted. I get that there needs to be some a ginger approach. But you don't have to be completely derelict in your duties as a journalist, right? You can ask some tough questions like, gee, why didn't you go to the police? Gee, whatever. It's just they have no interest in it. And the reason is there's no interest. His name is Donald Trump. They want to get him. And by the way, when I was interviewing those women while I was at NBC, I wasn't some huge fan of Trump. I understood, I was very open-minded to the fact that he might have done it. But I had to ask those tough questions of the women because it's our job. This is the problem, Glenn, is that when it's Trump, all ethics go out the window. Rachel Maddow doesn't care. George Stephanopoulos doesn't care. CNN doesn't care. And not only that, their organizations don't care. Because normally NBC or ABC or CBS, certainly ABC Morning, there'd be somebody there to say, you must ask some tough questions here in order to be fair to the other side. Zero. Zippo. Stephanopoulos, gee, like a schoolgirl. What was it like?
What are you planning on doing with the money? All the good things you're going to do with money. And look, we have a counterexample. Ordinarily in these cases, we would have to say like, oh, imagine if a woman were accusing a leading Democrat of this. Imagine how different they would be acting. We don't have to engage in that hypothetical. There was a woman who accused Joe Biden of having engaged in a similar sexual assault. There were actually a string of women alleging that he had done things to make them uncomfortable in the workplace, but one in particular who alleged that she was the victim of violent assault, Tara Reid. I know you had her on your show and you interviewed her in the way that you're suggesting that Megyn Carroll should be interviewed, but the media treated her much, much differently than they're treating Megyn Carroll or any Trump accusers. They talked about her like she was just a psychopath, like she was, it was like discourse from 70 years ago from any female sexual assault accuser, and no one in media wanted to take her claim seriously. They did everything to debunk it. And you just look at the contrast. And this is what I mean. It's, most Americans are not political junkies. They're not spending all their time focused on politics. But the corruption of the media has become so glaring that you don't even need to spend that much time looking at it. People notice these things. They observe these things. And the hatred that the media has earned, I think, is just that, very well earned because of this kind of behavior. I mean, we all have political biases. We all are subjective. But part of the job is supposed to be even-minded, to confront everybody with hard questions. As you say, you want to be sensitive with alleged rape survivors and victims, but you still have to ask hard questions, especially if they're putting themselves in the media and there's a political impact to their case. They did it when there was an accuser against Joe Biden. They're doing the opposite when it's someone accusing Donald Trump, and that kind of meat says it all.
That's exactly right. I mean, I remember speaking to this Leeds, this woman at NBC, saying, there was a man there was a British man on board the plane who said he saw nothing improper. There are real questions about whether Trump could have gotten over the armrest to you in the first class cabin. And with Tara Reid, same thing. I came out of my couch when I didn't even have a show, Glenn. It was like the first thing, go back and look at my YouTube feed. It was like the launch of my YouTube feed to put her on because nobody was talking to her. It was ridiculous. And I asked her tough questions too. Like, come on, you're saying this happened in a hallway in the Senate, building. Nobody saw you. And by the way, you said nice things about him years later. It's not fucking hard. Just grow a pair, ask a couple of tough questions to do your basic job. They won't. They're too motivated by the end result, and it's just an abomination. The pressure to conform to political correctness has undeniably suppressed genuine debate in this country, and it's time we put a stop to it. Enter Freedom 2.0, the unapologetic bottled water company that proudly supports the freedom to speak, freedom to think, and the freedom to listen. We can't afford to remain silent any longer. It's crucial to make our support for the First Amendment crystal clear, and one impactful way to do it is by choosing products from companies that champion our values. Visit freedom20, just the numeral 2 and then O, the letter, .com, freedom20.com, and use the code MK for a 15% discount to stand with yours truly and millions of other Americans in celebrating the right to free speech. Freedom is not inherited. It's something we must actively fight for. So raise your voice and grab your bottle of Freedom 2.0 and make a statement. Cheers to Freedom 2.0. That's Freedom 2.0, not Freedom 20, and champion the power of free speech. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.